Hey there, fellow coders and tech enthusiasts. Welcome to the BigOCast. Finally, we are here. I'm Liam and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Macy. Hi, Macy.
Hi there, I'm Macy and welcome to our podcast.
So, Macy, I know that you have been reading and working on DR.
Yes.
So, why you don't tell us what is a DR?
Yes, sure. So a DR stands for a decision record, and a decision record is a document that captures the decision alongside with the context and the consequences and the choices that you thought about during that process. We have different types of decision record. You can have security decision record, for example, design decision record, or like risk decision record, and so on. The one that I think we've heard about the most is architecture decision record, which we are going to talk about.
You cover what is a DR. Why do I need that? If I'm an engineer, why should I care? Like, I have a documentation about how the application works or how my service works. What would having a DR add to that?
So there are a couple of benefits in having a DR in your team or your organization and use that. And the very first one is the onboarding process. Let's say someone new joined your team. It's much faster for that person to go over your decision records and see what was the history there and read about it to get up to speed, comparing to when you want to go and ask people or you're confused for a little while, okay, why was this decision made, and so on. So the very first one is the onboarding process, makes it much easier when someone joins your team. The second one is the ownership handover. This situation happens a lot in organization changes, that you move one project from one team to another. If you don't have decision record, or let's say architecture decision record specifically in place, the new team, they need to go over, I don't know, like PR, or it's not very clear for them to understand, okay, why was this decision made? And it takes a lot of time for them to understand the context and the design behind that project. But if you have decision record in place, it's much faster for them. They just need to go over the documents that you captured and read them, and it gives them like an insight on why that decision was made, or the context, and it's much faster for them to get up to speed on the project itself. And the third one is to have an alignment or sync between different teams in an organization. For example, if team A wants to implement a solution for a problem, they usually they R&D and they discuss, and then there are different options, choices they consider, they have a discussion, and then finally they choose one over the other. So if you have architects, and let's say they document their decision and in a format of like a decision record or something like that. So let's say if team B later wants to implement a solution for the same problem in the same context, instead of them going over and redoing some of the steps, they can simply refer to that decision record, have a read, and see, okay, these are the options that they thought about, this is the context, and they choose this over the other because of this. In this way, you can kind of have consistent solutions for a same problem in a same context, and different teams can like refer to that as and implement the same thing if it still makes sense to do that.
Yeah, I think like I see all the points that you mentioned. From what I recall, for example, for onboarding, when I joined the new team, I had a hard time to understand why some decision was made. When I asked the people why, like it is designed like that, or what was this like a context behind it. they told me some assumptions that they had when they were designing the application. So some of those assumptions were valid, but some of them weren't valid anymore. I think ADR could help us when we make a decision. It's under some constraints. We have some assumptions, and over time, those assumptions might not be valid.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of the time, as you mentioned, as time goes, you do not correctly remember why this decision was made, like clearly. And I mean, what was the context? What was the constraint that made you to choose like this one over the rest? So yeah, if you have something in place that captures the context and then the constraints and the different options that you thought about and why you choose this one over the other one, like pros and cons of each, and then you say, okay, this is the one that I choose over the rest because of this. Yeah, I mean, in the future you can refer back to it, and yeah, it would help you to do like I don't know, like migration or refactoring, because you have the stuff and details captured somewhere. But yeah, as time goes by, you usually forget about, why it's in place. And I mean, as you mentioned, like everyone have like an understanding of it,
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
not, it might not be that clear for everybody. It's like not everyone's on the same page about why this was made, what was the context, what was the thinking behind it to make that decision.
Yeah, exactly. Now that you're talking about it, I feel like I need a personal decision record for just myself, like because I don't recall sometimes.
We all
why.
need.
Yeah.
We all need.
Yeah. So, how should we form a decision record document? How does one look like?
So you can have a template for it. Usually, there are a lot of templates out there that you can use, and templates makes it easier to start and makes it easier each time that you want to like document a decision record. It simplifies the process of starting thinking about what details you need to include and like save it and document it somewhere. So there are tons of templates out there with different details that you can include, and you can include as much as you think is good for your team or for your organization and what would help you to capture as much as you can. So there are a couple of common fields or details that you can capture in your template. For example, the title, which shows what this decision record is about, the date that this decision was made, the status of this decision record. For example, is it in progress? Is it in review? Is rejected? Or is confirmed? Shows the status. The context, as I mentioned a couple of times, the considered options and the decision reviewers, and you can just go on and add as much as you want to it, what makes sense for you. But the key thing is to provide enough information for someone unfamiliar with the decision to understand why this decision was made in that context. So try not to overwhelm that template with a lot of details, because you can get bored as you go over it. It's like a lot of details included in that document. Try to make it minimal and just capture the necessary stuff that would help someone to understand why this was made.
So there was a trade-off, right? Like how much time you want to spend and how comprehensive it needs to be, versus like I don't know, I want to something minimal and I want something, but the essence of that is that it should be good enough so someone who gets onboarded, who is unfamiliar with the decision, can understand the context, can answer the decision record should answer that person questions that based on this consideration, based on this assumption, and it was that problem that the team was trying to solve. So yeah, this decision was made and it makes sense, or it made sense at that time. It might not make sense.
Yes, correct.
Awesome. And lots of time we think that we made a bad decision and we want to revert that or undo it. How should it get reflected in the ADR?
Yeah, so one of the main characteristics of ADRs or decision record is that it should be immutable. So you shouldn't go back and change a decision record that's already in place. And for example, you captured it a year ago on a problem and a solution. So you need to create a new one, and then don't go and change or alter or update the previous one with the new decision that you made, or with the new constraint, the new context that you have. Let that one to stay there for a history that you go back and refer to it. If you have a new situation, you have a new constraint, it's not the thing that you mentioned in the previous one is not valid anymore, one or two of them, or anything that kind of changes the context, create a new one and capture the new constraint and context in the new one. You can always link and have a reference to the previous one, which is kind of like a background or history to the new one. And you can always go back and see what was the first place or a history to this one. But yeah, try for anything new, just try to capture a new one and not go back and alter.
Awesome. And before we close the first episode and say goodbye to our folks audience, do you have any last recommendation or tips about ADR?
Nothing that much. I would just say start to capture as much as you can. Decision records is not something that you see the benefit of them in a very near future, in a month or two. You might see, but it's usually over the time, a year or two, that you go back and refer to them. So try to capture as much as you can. If you have a template, it would be much easier to start. And as time goes, you would improve on that. You would see, okay, this doesn't make sense, I need to add that. It's an improvement thing as well as you go. And yeah, it would help you in the future. Definitely.
So people should see ADR as a live thing, and the fields can get changed over time. We might feel, okay, this was extra, this is something we need, and the template also can get updated. Am I right?
That's correct. The first, in the first couple months that you start this new process, it wouldn't change much over the time that you go. When you just start to have decision records in place and you just choose to have a template, yeah, you can modify in the first couple months. It would be because it would be an experimental thing.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You would be, oh no, this field doesn't make sense, I need to add that, this is missing.
Yeah.
But after a couple of months, I think it would be something solid in place. You know what you want, you just gather different opinions, you can hand it over to someone from a different team. It's a feedback
loop. And
loop or
and
process.
I think people would see the benefit of ADR not immediately, but in the long run, right? So it's one of the things that we shouldn't give up on after 1 quarter or a few months, because we all knew that, but when you want to take ownership of an application that was developed 5 years ago by another team, then oh my god, the team was amazing. They made a lot. Instead of just swearing to them, you would just blessing them.
Yeah, correct. And I've just felt it a lot of the times, and I've just seen it in a lot of occasions and different teams that people different people join your team, people leave, and these changes, you can just say that after these changes, if you have something in place, if you have a decision record in place, it would be much easier.
Agree.
And it shows it purpose over the time, because changes usually are like over the time. Like in a month or 2 years, it's still the same team, it's still the same like project or problem. It's like, it's still the same context that you're working. It's like fresh in your head. But after a year or a year and a half, it's like, okay, why you can't completely remember? Because you're working on something else. It's like a different context. It's like a different problem. It can be different people working on it. So yeah.
And is there any like an application or tool to do that?
So there are different tools to capture decision records. It's that you go with whatever makes sense for your team or for your organization. If you are more comfortable with Google Docs, go and use that as your decision records platform, capture it there. If you're more comfortable with source control, just capture it there. You can have like a repo or like a package under like another project to capture your decision records there. If you're more comfortable with wikis, you can capture it there. Anything that
suits the team.
Suits the team and suits like the organization and the team. You can go with it. There isn't any like best practice.
Right.
You can use any tools that makes more sense for you.
I think it like whatever documentation tool you use, it's probably most comfortable because everyone used it and like people can get onboarded faster. And thank you, Missy. Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you.
No problem. That was great.
Thank you. And I hope you folks also enjoyed our talk here. And see you soon in our next episode.
Yes. See you.
Goodbye.
And bye.